Hi there guys, welcome back to Dad Plays Stuff and another episode of Daemon X Machina's Outer Challenge. Now, please, before we start, leave a like, a comment and subscribe. Your feedback really helps out, and if you want more notifications of when I've released new videos, hit the bell down below as well. Now today's episode is against Rebellion, the bipedial, massive, arsenal-like immortal that wields a massive sword and a huge shield. He is very heavily armoured, and the strategy is pretty close to what I would recommend doing during most of the game anyway when you're up against this guy. So, what to do is creep behind him and focus your attention on one of his elbows. Now, he has some armour plating on the elbow, and your goal is to break that open and reveal the core underneath. Destroy the core. It's at this point that Rebellion has a sort of stunned phase. He sits still for about a good 10, maybe 15 seconds, and in this time you have a lot of opportunities to deal some major damage. What I recommend doing at this point is flying to the front of the boss and focusing on his knees. These are some of the hardest points to deal with as an outer. So basically, destroy the knee plating and destroy the knee cores. Easiest way to do that? Toss grenades at them. Just lob a bunch of grenades into them. Just spam it. And hopefully you'll get a good amount of damage in. Now, the reason I recommend that you focus the knee cores and the knee plating at this stage is because once he hits his fractal mode, he is a lot faster, and when he uses his kind of big kick lunge attack, it's deceptively fast. It catches me off guard more often than I'd like to admit, and I think everybody else will be similar if not the same. So focusing on these parts makes it easier for you to deal with in the long term, because you can get those damage points in early, and that way you don't need to worry about it later on. His elbows are the easiest ones to deal with, and as I said, it causes a stunned phase. So if you take out the elbow and then somehow, or rather quite likely take out one of the knees, then the next time you take out an elbow, take out the knees, then you've taken out all the cores that you need to take out during the fight. You're not going to get his central core. It's very, very heavily shielded, and I just don't feel that you can do enough damage to it in order to break the shield and then hit the core. It's the problem with being an outer, is that your fire rate isn't great and your damage isn't great. It's all about longevity and, you know, being smart rather than DPS after all. So now we'll go into the mechanics of the boss themselves as an outer. Now, first off, you've got his massive sword swing. Really easy to avoid. If he fires at you, don't get me wrong, you're probably not going to dodge it close range. Ideally, what you want to do is get behind him before he has a chance to even use it. Once you're behind there, he can't do jack against you. Same with his shield or his grab attack. He can't do anything in regards to that. He will just kind of twiddle his thumbs and move round to try and get you, but generally he can't do anything. Don't get me wrong, he does have some abilities in this sense. He has machine guns that are mounted on his back and on his front, so avoid them at all costs. So keep moving. Like most of the fights, keep moving. If you stay still too long, you are going to get hit pretty damn hard. The only point you can stay still in this fight is when he is in his downtime mode, once you've destroyed one of the elbow cores. The next mechanic is probably the most dangerous in my opinion. It's his frontal kicks. Now, if you're within range of basically being kicked, he'll raise up one of the legs depending on what side you're on and go in for a massive boot. These can be quite fast, and what he will then usually do is follow up with a second kick, which is even faster than the first. So it's imperative that if you're in front of him, you keep a good distance away from him, and you're not allowing him to get one kick in, because if he gets one kick in, he usually gets the second in and you go flying. And this can cause even more fall damage, which can cause you to just straight up die right away. Another mechanic is he will periodically jump into the air. Now, this isn't too much of a threat. If he lands on you, it's obviously going to do a fair amount of damage, but as long as you're kind of strafing around him, you're really not going to feel any real danger from it. However, if you are way too low on the ground, there is a shockwave that comes with it. Now, because that shockwave is going to deal damage, you don't want to be anywhere near the ground. Ideally, you want to be basically nipple height on this guy at any given time, if not higher. It's the simplest way to deal with most of his mechanics, is just be high up and he can't hit you very well. However, when it comes to destroying the cores, you are going to have to get relatively close in order to deal the damage that you need to do. So it isn't always an option to be too high up. Now, the last ability that comes into play, if you followed my strategy, is his charge attack. Now, usually he'll kind of squat down in a manner where his fists are sort of pointing forward, and then he'll launch at you. It's really easy to avoid. He telegraphs it a lot, and as long as you're strafing left or right at any given time, usually goes straight by you by a margin of a mile. He really can't hit you very well with it. You're a small target after all, so I would not expect you to get hit by this often, if at all, during the fight. But be aware of it, because again, if he hits you at the right angle, you'll fly into the air, and if you can't recover, you're going to hit the ground and die. Now, it's pretty much the same fight in his fractal stage as well. If you follow the strategy, he's not going to have extra abilities, like for example, if you don't kill the sword, and he still has it during phase 2 in his fractal mode, at about 50% health, he is going to have an ability where he can basically stab the sword into the ground and cause a massive kind of shockwave explosion thing. That would be bad. So again, take the sword out for the first core you go for. It gives you a lot of opportunity to deal a lot of early damage, and it takes away one of his most powerful mechanics really early on in the fight, so that when it comes to phase 2, he can't use it on you. Now, the last part of the boss fight, once all the cores are gone, is sadly a little bit tedious. I would recommend raising yourself up into the air as far as you can, but still be in range to hit the central core of the boss, and you're basically just going to shoot at it until he dies. There's no real way to do any more damage than that. You're not going to break the shield to get into the core, as I said earlier, so all you do for the last usually about 10% of the fight is just stay out of his way and shoot him at a distance. It's not the most exciting strategy, but it works, and it's the safest way to get through this fight without dying at the end, because you were, a little bit overzealous and got too close to the core and he booted you into oblivion. So I'd definitely recommend elevating up, shooting at the core, using that last 10% as a little easy mode run at that point. Now, I know I say this every video, but do not neglect the ads that spawn. If you see the AIs on the screen and you have the opportunity, take them out. They're just going to be extra bullets firing at you and more things to worry about randomly killing you during the fight. So be vigilant when it comes to them as well. I always keep a vague little look at the radar at any given time. Now, with the strategy for the boss out of the way, I'm going to use this time to go into a little bit of knowledge bomb in regards to how to use the outer effectively in terms of combat. I found that obviously as you spam attacks with the blitz weapon, it overheats and then you basically have to wait for it to recharge. Now, with this, I'd heavily recommend that you essentially, during the point where it's about to overheat, use the secondary mode of it. So press your left trigger. This releases a charged kind of explosion attack from it, and it allows you to get your heat down on the weapon whilst still being able to deal some damage. This proved to be a very useful mechanic for me during the next video after this one, which I haven't done editing yet, but it is a grueling slog. And I figured that out during that fight, is that the easiest way is fire until you're overheating, then use secondary mode for a couple of seconds, and it allows your weapon to basically go back down to no heat whatsoever, so you'd never stop dealing damage, which is a very, very good thing in a lot of the fights, because your biggest problem with as an outer is you don't deal a lot of damage and your weapon is inconsistent in terms of range, and yeah, overheating is never good. Now, when it comes to the movement of your outer, I would heavily recommend, if you ever need to raise yourself up into the air quickly, just direct your camera up and boost in that direction, just like you would with your arsenal if you want to raise in the air quickly. It is something you need to get used to, and sometimes it's annoying because you're trying to aim at the enemy and deal some damage, but yeah, just boost up into the air and get away from the kind of situation. It's very useful in a lot of different types of fights, and I would definitely recommend playing around with some of the outer mechanics before you start doing any of these boss fights on the human terms. Now, I've really enjoyed making the outer challenge videos. It is very, very challenging in some cases. However, it's one of those things where I feel it may be getting close to the limit of what you can actually do with it. There is going to be some boss fights out there that are either going to take a very long time to do and require the most precise amount of skill and finesse and accuracy in terms of my movements and that kind of, that it's just going to make it so difficult to do, or there's just too much of a damage gap. We'll see what I can get up to. I do have another video ready for tomorrow, so there is at least one more outer challenge video where I can actually manage to do it. It was difficult, very, very difficult, and I think there's a degree of luck involved as well as some skill and cheese. So that was that, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and if you did enjoy this video tonight, please don't forget to leave a like, a comment and subscribe down below. It really helps out the channel, and if anybody would be so inclined to share my videos on your Twitter, Facebook, all that, it would be really appreciated. The more people I can get watching my videos, the more enthusiasm I get towards making more ones and trying to improve the way I make my videos. But anyway, good night, guys, and enjoy playing Daemon X Machina.